Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Once again, welcome to Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. Wherever you're coming from, I think you're in the right place, and we're delighted to celebrate Shabbat with you. We're also celebrating the bar mitzvah of one Aiden Hartford, Mazel Tov Aiden, and we're just getting warmed up, but you're already doing great. So somebody said to me, Rabbi, there's a bar mitzvah this weekend, so don't give the sermon you usually do. And I said, well, what's the sermon I usually? They say every rabbi has one sermon. So what's the sermon usually? He's like, the rambling one. So, okay, I thought this week it's going to be different. I brought a piece of paper that I wrote my sermon on. And so we're going to see how that goes. And it says, tell the cow story. Well, that's no help. I'll just put that there for later. But there is, in fact, a cow story. I want to share just a few brief words of Torah before we get to the part that Aiden has thoroughly practiced. So there's a cow, but I get ahead of myself here. In this particular Parsha, we've had a couple of weeks of building the Mishkan or talking about building the Mishkan. We had last week, as I said, was Fashion Week. We had people talking about the clothes that the priests would wear when it was time to do that. And this Parsha centers on a moment where Moses is having kind of a private audience with God in the beginning of the story. And Moses is there to receive the law. A few weeks back, Parashat Yitro, we had the announcement of the Ten Commandments. And as we get past number 10, the people who have been awestruck up until this point have had about all that they can take of the voice of God. And I don't mean that in a mean way. They're like, this is amazing, and it's super duper scary and loud. And I know there's more. Moses, can you just go get the rest of it in writing? Right? So we don't forget any of it. We can't remember more than 10 at a time anyway. So Moses goes up to the top of the mountain to receive the 10 commandments and the rest of the Torah from God. And while he's there, God is writing the commandments God's self. And so God has these 2 tablets of stone, and letters are appearing. I'm not going to say what kind of pen God uses. There's a midrash on how these letters appear on the stone. They appear carved not just on the surface, but all the way through. The letters penetrate the stone. And why this is all the much more miraculous is this includes the closed letters, meaning there's a samek, which looks like kind of a circle. If you can imagine carving a circle into a stone all the way through, there'd be like a chunk. There'd be like a little donut hole. But the rabbis say that piece was left floating suspended in space in all of the open letters. This is the miraculous nature of God's writing. So these tablets are incredibly valuable, not just because they contain this guide to life for a free people, but because this is the first artifact that we are going to hold in our hands, fashioned in our lifetime by the Holy One. And so Moses is just about to take these amazing tablets down the mountain when he hears a commotion. And he says, God, what's that? And God said, you don't want to know. But I'm going to tell you anyway what the people are doing. See, Moses had been gone for a little while. Moses had been gone for 40 days and 40 nights, very popular span of time in the Torah. But he'd been gone for 40 days and 40 nights. And this people who were in the middle of nowhere, just having experienced the most dramatic event of their lives, sat there in stunned silence. And not just their silence, but God's silence. They were in the middle of nowhere, had no idea how to live their lives. I mean, the top 10 were pretty compelling, but they weren't like every day, what time should I get up and cook my breakfast kind of things. So they had no guidance. They had no further instructions. And people who had been rescued from slavery, from hundreds of years of slavery, overnight, forgot who rescued them. It took just 40 days to forget who they were and who and what they were for. And so what they did was they took all of the valuables that they'd taken with them from Egypt. They melted down all the gold and built an idol. It took them 40 days to lose their path and start a brand new religion. And God was nonplussed, let's put it mildly. And he said to Moses, or God said to Moses, I'm going to start over again. I'm not going to wipe out the whole world. I already made that promise with Noah, but these folks are not for me. Tell you what, Moses, I'm going to wipe them all out and start over with you. You're the new Jewish Noah. And let's see how that goes. And Moses, in all of his chutzpah, speaks to God and says, are you sure? Not for me, not for them, but for you. People are going to talk. People are going to say, you brought this people out into the wilderness just to kill them. You could save them, but you couldn't sustain them. And we don't want people saying that about you. How about we just give them a good talking to, maybe a plague or two, and we'll give them another chance. So Moses is filled with compassion for his people in God's face. But when he comes down the mountain, let's just say he's not dripping with compassion. He's carrying 2 heavy tablets of stone, these gifts of God for them, and they're dancing around a golden calf. And he picks them up and he smashes them in front of them. And in his further rage, he takes the cow down, he burns it. It's really just gold leaf. There's a lot of wood in there. There's a lot of ash, and he makes them drink the ash. He is angry. And they're so busy with this that nobody asks, dude, you just broke God's tablets. God gave us those, and you smashed them. It had the floating samach and everything, and they are toast. Why would you do that? And there's a couple of opinions about this. This is a Jewish story. There's a couple of opinions about this. One of my favorite midrashim is a midrash from Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, who's describing this scene of Moses taking down these stone tablets, and it's got the floating letters, which means after, just do a little math and physics here for a second, after God carved the letters in the stones were lighter than they were before. And so Moses is carrying them down, and when Moses sees, and when the stones see what the people are doing, the letters depart. They fly off. They say, no, thank you. We are not part of this project. The letters disappear, and the tablets become these heavy blocks of stone again in their full weight. And Moses can no longer support them, and he drops them, and they shatter. And the rabbis look at this and say, you've probably been there before. If you've ever had a position of leadership and everybody was behind you and everybody was on mission and everybody was enthusiastic about it, no burden, no stones are too heavy. But when you give the people your all, when you guide them on the right path and they just decide, you know what, we're going to take our own path, no burden is light enough. There's another story that I like a little bit better. It's from Masechet Menachot in the Bavli, where Moses sees what the people are doing, and before they see him, he smashes the tablets. Because he knows what they're doing is wrong. God knows what they're doing is wrong. But maybe just this once, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's erase the law for a second. Let's give them a second chance to learn the right way forward. And if I have to, I'll write the next set of tablets. And he did. So Moses literally broke the law to spare his people from shame. I just have one take to add to that. Maybe Moses knew in that moment, as he carried this treasure from God's own hands, that we have to write our laws ourselves for them to be effective. That doesn't mean that we all wrote the Torah, that we continue to write our own Torah. I believe the Torah comes from God. There are a few different opinions on how that happened, and I have several of them, but I believe that the Torah comes from holiness to make us holy. It is a gift from outside of us, but each of us has the power to bring it into reality. If anybody's, I came of age in a time where the first part of my schooling, I took meticulous notes in handwriting, and you all have seen my handwriting, so it can't have been that useful. But I took lots of notes in handwriting. And then when I was in grad school and I could afford a computer, I was taking notes on my computer, and I just didn't do as well. Because when I was writing thoughts in my own hand, I remembered them. They stuck, even when I didn't go back and look at them. But if I wrote them down on a computer, I had to look at them again and again and again for them to sink in, because it cost me nothing to create that record. Moses says to himself, I just bought these people another lifetime. I need to make sure they don't screw it up again. So this time, I'm going to write their laws as a human being so that they know human beings can do this. So as you go into your week, you will make decisions. And there will be people who notice. These could be children that you have. These could be students that you teach. These could be people that you're responsible for at work. These could be people in your household who admire you. Know that in every decision that you make, in every action that you take, in that moment, you are writing a law. You are putting it on the table that this is the right thing to do. And everyone whom you are responsible for is watching you. So consider that and act so that those who look up to you will follow the laws that you write. And in doing so, live lives of worthiness and justice and peace. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you again for joining us at PJTC.